Okay, we're going to have a look at the 2000 um, suspense account question. It's quite an old question, but it's a very good question, a basic question to get us started on suspense accounts. Um, the question presents as follows. It says the trial balance of J. Reddington, who is a garage owner, that's relevant because he buys and sells cars, failed to agree at the end of 1999. The difference was entered in a suspense account, which is incorporated into stock here. And the following balance sheet was prepared. So here's our balance sheet with our fixed assets, current assets, creditors, and finance by, a nice simple balance sheet. It's presenting as 302,000 here. But of course, we are going to eradicate some errors and get rid of that suspense, and that's going to change that slightly. As we read further down, it says on checking the books, the following errors were discovered. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. It is our job to journalize these, enter them into the general journal, as we looked at in the high ordinary level questions. That's 55 out of the 100 marks right there. And then we have to do part B, which is show a suspense account. Part C, correct a net profit. And part D is correct a balance sheet. Correct the balance sheet, which is written here on the page. All of that is fine because all of that is based on the corrections from part A. So part A really is the heaviest part of the work, and that's what I intend to do in this particular video. So let's have a look at the first correction. You guys will have the question in front of you. The first correction is as follows. It says Reddington won a private holiday valued at €5,000 in total. One ticket, a private holiday for two. One ticket was given to a salesperson as part payment for sales commission for the year, and the other to an advertising firm as payment in full of a debt of 2,650. The key phrase at the end of this, no entry has been made in the books. No entry has been made in the books means that that is an error of omission. As normal, I have pre-written out some of this, but I'm going to explain what I have here, and I've pre-written the answer here, but I'm going to explain how I got it. So if it is something, Reddington won a private holiday, but he injected that money into the company. Well, an injection of money, private money into a company is capital. And he gave some of it as a commission, and he paid a debt with the other part. And that's why we have commission here, and we have a creditor, somebody who we owed money to there. And then we do have some discount because the numbers do not exactly match. One of the numbers is 2,650, whereas an individual ticket is 2,500. So let's look at that. Capital is always a credit entry. €5,000 is how much he injected in. So that goes on the credit side there. And half of that, or one ticket, he gave to a salesperson in the form of commission. That's an expense. It's a payment of wages, except it's a benefit in kind. It's a non-cash payment of 2,500. The other one, he paid off a debt that he owed to an advertising firm. Now he owed these guys 2,650, and that is how much he paid off. They accepted the 2,500 ticket as full payment. So therefore, there is going to be a bit of discount. Is it evident which side this discount should be? Well, this discount should be on the credit side to make these two amounts balance, and it should be €150. And why is it on the credit side? Because that is discount received. We owed this guy 2,650, but he allowed us to only pay 2,500. That is discount that we received off him of 150. What actually happened is nothing actually happened because this is an error of omission. So what we do is we replicate across to the correction required. We just put in our 5,000 here and our 2,500 and our 2,650 and our discount received of 150. And these are the numbers here which are entered into our general journal. And our general journal is as follows: 5,000, 2,500, 2,650 for creditors, and a discount figure of 150. The narrative, I'm going to let you guys work on that yourselves, but it's going to say correction of the error of omission of an injection of capital. As long as you kind of sum up what the point is around, then that's fine. So that's an error of omission, and that's our first one. Number 2. Again, I've pre-written out some of the template here. Let's read the question. It says, a motor car purchased on credit from J. Arnott for €11,000 had been entered on the incorrect side of Arnott's account, so it was put on the wrong side of his account, and it was put into the equipment account, which of course it shouldn't have been at all. So let's look at this. If it is a purchase, it should have went in the purchases account, €11,000, and it should have went in creditors on the credit side, €11,000. This is our what should have happened. This is the place where our transactions make sense. Now, however, what actually happened made no sense at all. So you have to follow the question's instructions here because it's not logical. It says that it's been entered on the incorrect side of Arnott's account. So in fact, they put 11,000 on the debit side here, and it has been credited as 1,100 in equipment. Of course, it's not equipment at all, so it shouldn't have been anywhere near the equipment account. Now, how do we correct this? Well, we have a number of things we need to do. First off, we need to put in the 11,000 where it should be. The creditor is on the complete wrong side, so in order to switch sides, we need to double that across. So we need to put 22,000 on the credit side of creditors. The first 11 of that makes this a 0, and the second 11 makes it correct. 22,000 there. And this equipment, well, that should simply not be there. So therefore, we're going to put the equivalent amount on the opposite side, and that cancels that. And now you have a 0 in your equipment account. These 3 entries go in as thus, and you are left where you do not have a balancing amount with those 3 numbers. So therefore, you need to balance your general journal. So you require a suspense of 9,900 on the debit side to make these 2 columns balance. The suspense is whatever is required to make those 2 accounts balance. And now we have corrected that entry, and we have balanced the accounts, and we found a big chunk of our suspense figure. Number 3. It says car parts previously sold for €230 were returned to Reddington. That first sentence, up until the first full stop, is what should have happened. So car parts previously sold, that's sales returns. Sales returns go on the debit side there, and they go on the credit side of debtors, and they're reducing how much these people owe us because they've sent something back to us. However, these goods were actually incorrectly entered as €30 on the credit of equipment. Again, you have to read the question for this because it doesn't make any sense. It shouldn't have been near equipment. And 23 on the debit of purchases. So that's what actually happened. These things were put in here. Should have been put in like this. So how do you solve this? Well, you literally go and you cancel what is incorrect. You put 30 on the debit here to cancel this erroneous figure, and you put 23 on the debit here to cancel this one. Now you're left with a clean slate, and then you put what should have been in there at the start, which is that 230 in sales and 230 in debtors. Now you have these 4 numbers: 230 in sales returns, 230 in debtors, €30 in equipment, 23 in purchases on the credit side. And you can see that it does not exactly balance, so you need a small suspense entry of 7 on the credit side to make that thing work. And your narrative there is the correction of sales returns being recorded in the incorrect accounts. And then we look at number 4. Number 4, I sometimes like to call the 3Ds, drawings, debtors, and discount. Let's have a look at this. It says a private debt of 1,200 owed by Reddington had been offset in full against a business debt owed to the firm for car repairs previously carried out. No entry has been made in respect of this offset. No entry has been made means an error of omission. So what actually happened is nothing. So all we need to do is record this correctly. Now, so this chap owes somebody in his private life, but then they owed his business and they allowed an offset to happen here. So that's fine as long as we record it as drawings for Mr. Reddington because he did benefit from the business in that regard. So you put €1,200 into the drawings because that is how much the private debt has been cancelled for him. That's how much he's taken out. Now, out of debtors, we can remove 1380 because that is a business debt owed to the firm. So that's a debtor, and that has now gone away. So therefore, we're reducing our debtors by that much. Now, which side is the discount required? Well, it's easy to see at a glance that the discount is 180 on the debit side, and then that will indicate that that's discount allowed because this chap owed us 1,380, but we allowed him off with 1,200, so we allowed him some discount and €180 in this regard. What actually happened is nothing, so therefore you just replicate across your 1,200 here, 1,380 here, and 180 in discount, and that is the general journal corrections. And your narrative is correction of the omission of an offset of drawings against debtors in the accounts. And then we're going to look at our fifth and final one. And the fifth and final one, maybe the most complicated one. It says Reddington had returned a motor car previously purchased on credit from a supplier for 10,400, but had entered the transaction in the relevant accounts incorrectly as 10,440. So I'm just going to do that bit first. We're going to pause there for a moment, and I'm going to say purchase returns and creditors are the two accounts. Now, purchase returns are the opposite of purchases, they go on the credit side. It should have been 10,400 here, and then of course it would reduce our creditors by 10,400 because we're not paying for that item we've returned. However, that was entered as 10,440 and 10,440. Now, however, subsequently, a credit note arrived from a supplier in respect of the return, showing a transport charge of 250 to cover the cost of the return. So actually, the credit note arrived, and we are not getting a return of 10,400. We're only getting 10,150 because they're keeping €250 of our money. So therefore, we are not able to write off 10,400 of creditors, instead just 10,150. That is 250 taken off the 10,400. However, the only entry, I'm reading the last sentence now of the question, the only entry made in respect of this credit note was a credit of 10,150 in the creditor's account. Of course, makes no sense, but nevertheless, we have to just write down what the error that happened. So this is the mistake. This is the way it should look, having been 10,400, but then subsequently being reduced to 10,150. How do we make this middle part look like this? Well, first off, purchase returns needs to be made a little bit smaller. So you need to take away the difference, and that difference is 290. So you put it on the opposite side, 290 here will bring it down to 10,150. So that 290 appears there. Then you have to look at the creditors. Now, what is the actual existing balance in creditors? Well, if you were to balance this account here at the moment, I think you'd probably come up with 290 on the debit side. But of course, we wish it to be 10,150 on the debit side. So therefore, we need to add significantly to this. We need to add the difference being 9860 on the debit side to bring this situation up to here, to this 10,150. We need to add that on. You enter in both of those corrections in here, and you'll find that you will need a suspense of 10,150 on the credit side to balance it against the two entries that we have on the debit here. The narrative is the correction of purchase returns recorded incorrectly. In the next video, we'll have a look at how all of these entries, there's our 55 marks now, but we have several different entries in our general journal, which we will show what effect they have in parts B, C, and D.